Hi, I'm Newell Davis with World Composting, and we are 1 week into having our Bokashi that's been added to the Verma Bag Max and a bucket on the side here. So overall, it's been all right. There has been some odor still that has not really gone away. I have been lighting my candles here, so as you can see, I've got some candles that I've been lighting to kind of control that a little bit. But somebody else mentioned something in my comments which I did not think about at all, and that is Bokashi can heat up. So I started testing it, and it was starting to heat up. The bucket was heating up a little bit, and my bag was heating up a little bit. And with that, I decided I needed to add water to kind of cool it down. Now, it never reached, I feel, that key temperature of about 90 degrees where most of the worms would start really dying off. But it did get to around 80, I want to say, and around like high 70s in the bucket. So it was warming up a little bit. Not overall issue, but if you added all this to one of your bins or one of your bag systems or wherever you're adding it, it could heat up and kill your worms. So you really need to be careful if you're adding a lot of this in bulk. Now, if you're adding this to an outdoor compost pile, it is fantastic. It's going to heat it up. It's going to break down. It's going to really work well in an outdoor compost pile. So I would recommend doing that with your Bokashi. So with that, let's go to the systems and take a look and see how they're doing, and I'll explain some of the things I've done to try to help mitigate the smell, along with the changes I've made to kind of mitigate the heat as well. So let's go take a look at them. I added some of this the wood chips to the top here to kind of be a moisture absorber, since I was getting a lot of liquid originally on when I had a lid on here, and I thought this could absorb some of the moisture. So we're going to dig down in here and just take a look. And this would also sort of stop some of the smell. I was getting a nice wood chip smell out of here instead of the Bokashi rotting food smell. So let's just take a look here and see how things are doing. Now, I'm not going to dump this out because of the fact that it has the Bokashi mix in here. And also, while we're here, I've got my little temperature gauge right here, so we can kind of just check the temperature real quick. So it says 70, 73, 74 degrees. So a little bit warmed up, but not too bad. Let's just dig down in here. I feel some solid stuff up. It looks like this is a piece of a lobster shell, which still feels pretty hard. That's probably not going to break down for a while. More lobster shell, a little bit of odor. Let's dig in this other side here. Definitely getting more odor out of here now, and I can feel the heat down in here. So let's just... So there we go. We're up to 78 degrees or 80 degrees almost, so, and I can definitely smell stuff in here. I do see a couple worms in here though that made it down into this level, so definitely more odor down in here than I would like, especially for my stuff, especially being inside the house. So I don't know if I would do this again inside. Again, these chicken bones in here not really breaking up that much. And here's banana peels. I'm not seeing any worms on this at all. I expected to see some down in here somewhere. You know, I'm not seeing any worms in here whatsoever. Really, well, that's except for those few that I saw. I mean, I put a bunch of worms on the top here from what I remember. So I don't know if they crawled out somewhere or what happened with them, but they're not in here right now. Oh, here we go. Here's a bunch of worms. Here we go. This is what I was expecting to see here. There's a bunch of worms crawling through this stuff. Believe it or not, this feels like these are grapes, I think, or grape stems. And there's a ton of worms on here, which is what I expected. I expected them to eventually get down in here and really start working on this stuff. So this is what I was really wanted to see. So they are starting to get down into this material. It's a little bit dry now, probably. And I probably need to add a little bit more moisture to it. Let's just go to this side now. This is my coffee grounds that I had, I think, on top at one point. So let's open those up a little bit. Let's just see here. More fruit, more worms. So this is a kiwi, I guess, that went bad in my house. There's a piece of banana peel. So as you can see right here, there's worms going down in here and eating this stuff. It's just taking them a while to get down there, I think, and maybe it needs a few more worms. All right, I'm going to cover this back up. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna make sure all this stuff is buried in here. This stuff, all the food from the bottom there in the section feels kind of warm as well. So let's just compare some purposes here. So this says 77 degrees on top here. Seems a little bit warm. my cabinet behind it says, oops, I can't see that one, 70 degrees on the cabinet behind it. So just again, so you can see, 74, 75 degrees on here, and it's 70 degrees on the cabinet, and this is on the top, which isn't nearly as warm as underneath here. Let's just dig back down one more time here so you can see the banana peel. So, oh, that's saying 87. Oh, that's me. 76 degrees. There we go. So it is a little warm in here. So make sure all this stuff is buried. I don't really want to get fruit flies in here, so I'm going to put this back to the side. Just make sure everything in here, having trouble getting everything buried. Now what I want to do here is I just want to get all this stuff wet again. So I've got my little spray wand here. I'm just going to get everything wet. I'm going to rinse off my gloves here. Make sure everything's underneath this. So overall, I don't know if I would ever do this again and put this in my worm bins. What I'd probably do is do some of the other things where you bury it in the soil. And there's also some people that have actually buried it in like large containers. Still some stuff poking up here on the surface. Just want to make sure everything's buried. I don't want anything getting out here. So I would definitely do something like that, but I probably would not do it again in the in my inside bins. Just too much of a risk of smell. And you know, there's somebody that actually had a big 50-gallon Rubbermaid tote filled with dirt in the bottom, about 6 inches worth of dirt, dumped his Bokashi, and then put another 10 inches of dirt over it. I could see doing something like that, but I wouldn't do this again. I don't know if they're coming in through the bottom or not. I'm afraid to even let's just lift this up here and take a look here. Oh, a ton of worms actually by those holes in the bottom. Look at that. If you can see down there, let me move this off to the side real quick. So you can see right here, let me zoom in. I mean, this is what it looks like in the bottom here. I mean, look at this. I mean, they're just all over this stuff. And this, granted, this is where all the stuff is running out in here. So you can tell that there's just a lot of stuff that's coming out, a lot of material that's coming out of this that the worms really, really like. So I'm going to actually move these guys over to the side here. It might also be because there's more moisture. It's kind of drying out as I've left the lid off. You can tell that this material is sort of drying out a little bit. I left this lid off just to kind of keep everything going. And as far as the, I can't put the lid on and have the bucket on here, so that's why I have the lid off. But let me just move this around a little bit here. We're going to put the bucket back in here again. All right. And I think I'm going to actually grab some of this material, put it right on top here. So there's going to be more worms in this top section again. That'll dig hopefully their way back down through this bucket. Now, one thing that this might work really well with, this Bokashi system, is I know that there's Mark with Eve Gardening does his Vernmenting system. And that might work really well with this type of stuff. Because it's really supposed to be a system where you kind of close it up, you let all the liquids drain out, and you can put in everything in his. I mean, the way his system works, I've been meaning to try it, and I haven't had a chance to yet. I just don't have all the stuff together yet. But that might be something that would work really well in this type of system, where you're trying to, let me just get this wet again, trying to build up nice healthy soils and try to get rid of everything. I mean, he puts everything in his Vernmenting. I mean, at one point I think he put like a full possum that was hit or something by a car, and he just put it in there, and it eventually was, most of it was gone. So there we go. This is good. Actually, hold on here. I'm going to grab, there's a couple worms here on this. I had a lid here that I put the bucket on. There was a couple worms that fell out, so I'm going to make sure that those go back in. I don't want them to just dry out and die. That's not polite. Make sure I get all of those off. I think I did. So I'm going to put I think I might put this lid back on actually and kind of close this off a little bit more than what I had. And that way this is sealed a little bit, keeps some of the moisture in. It should hopefully be cooled off a little bit with the water. So let's just go take a look here. So yeah, it's 69 degrees now, compared to 70, or actually it's 69 degrees on there too. So it's hard to tell if you guys can see this from the glare, but it's around 69 degrees in here on this top section, and hopefully this will warm up a little bit more again, and it'll eventually kind of work its way through. So I'm hoping that these worms will work their way down, and we'll slowly get rid of all this stuff that's in here. As I said, I don't know if I would do this again inside, but I would probably do Bokashi again, but we'll see. So that's my first update is on this bucket. Now let's go over to the Verma Bag Max, and we can see how that's doing. Alright guys, here it is, the Verma Bag Max here. I had to make a couple changes to it due to the fact that it was getting an odor with it, but also because of the fact that it was heating up and I wasn't sure what to do at the time. So first off, I am seeing fruit flies in here, so let's just see how this looks right now. What I'm hoping to do is sort of vacuum them up right now, and actually we're already seeing a whole bunch come out. So first thing first, let's just take a look here. It is 81 degrees on the top here, so it's really warming up here. But first thing, before we do anything else, I'm going to grab the vacuum and try to suck up some of these fruit flies. Alright, not nearly as many as I thought there would be. But we're going to slowly take off this bag. I put this trash bag on top, as I said, due to the odor, and you can see, look at all the moisture in here from the humidity. Kind of a smell to it, not nearly as good as the other one is. Okay, so worms. I am seeing some worms over here. They're all by the outside right now. They're trying to get cool, which is not surprising to me at all, considering the amount of heat that is being generated in this bin. I'm going to pour this water back in here. This bin is way too moist right now. Surprisingly, last time when I went to open it, there was a lot of fruit flies. This time, not quite as many. There are some worms here on the outside still. Still an odor in here, but not nearly as bad as it was before. Let's just kind of dig around in here a little bit. I think I might have to keep that on to block the air. Still smells in here. It is 85 degrees in here, so this is a dangerous temperature for worms. 88, so yeah, it's really heating up. As you can see, the worms they're trying to move towards the outside. This is really, actually, it's probably even warmer in here. Let's just see here. 92, look at that. So this is heating up and composting instead of it already being broken down. So this is a big concern if you're throwing this in an inside worm bin. Lots of moisture in here, so that's not a problem. I'm not seeing many worms. I'm wondering if they all went down to the bottom to try to get away from this area, you know, because this is too hot for worms. This is a deadly temperature for worms. So this is not going to be something that I would recommend for an inside worm bin. If I could have had this outside and opened up the top and really aired it out, this might have worked really well. But this is just way too warm. I mean, I can feel the heat in here. It's breaking down. It's actually composting instead of being Bokashi. So yeah, it's up to 96, it looked like at one point. And it smells like it's composting. Like, it smells like compost. It doesn't have that earthy smell yet, but it's definitely baking itself in here. Now, it's not hitting those 160 degree temperatures, which would be really dangerous in here, but it is going up in temperature. So what I'm going to do, though, to try to fix this, as you can tell, this cardboard is just ripping apart right now. This is all fresh. I'm just trying to see if I can find anything to the side here. I mean, it feels nice and cool on the side. So, I mean, like, just to give you an idea here. I mean, the side of the bin is 69 degrees, going a little bit at 71. So the sides of the bin are still cool. It's just this center section where the food really is that's really, really warm. And actually, here we go. I found a huge hunk of worms down here. Just show you here. See, there are worms in here, and they're not doing bad, but they're congregating around the sides where they can stay cool and, you know, not die from the heat. So not surprisingly, worms are going to go where they can survive. You know, like most things would. They're not going to stay in an area that's going to kill them. So let's just dig down here a little bit more. I mean, we're down to the food area. A little bit of smell, not nearly as bad as it was when I first got it out. And I guarantee that some of this was rotting, not all of it was broken out with the Bokashi. Still doesn't smell great. I'm not gonna lie. I think a lot of it was, I think a good portion of the middle section of the food was rotting instead of actually being broken down by the Bokashi. and I probably needed more bran. And I did go on online and find some more information. I'll cover this at the end as far as what I probably did wrong here with my Bokashi. But what we're going to do is try to fix this. This is too hot, and I know it's too hot. And you guys obviously probably know it's too hot as well, as you can tell from the worms congregating around the outside. So the question is how do we cool this off? And I think I have the answer to that. And this is an answer also for those people that have bins that are outside in hot areas. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some ice to the top here. We're going to add water to it, but it's going to be, this is just the lid from the food that I have here. So we're going to actually add some food, but it's frozen watermelon. So this is primarily water. We're just going to spread this along the top here. This is going to heat up and hopefully cool down this mass that's in there. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to give some more places for this water to go. So as you can tell from the top of that, it was really warm. Now I'm beginning to see the fruit flies here. So let me just kill those real quick. And there probably will be more fruit flies in here because I can't keep adding bedding material if it's heating up this much. And I don't know, this might help, this might not help, but I'm going to throw this in here. And then we're going to throw some fresh bedding on top. Just trying to kill any of these fruit flies that I see so they don't spread through the house. You know, so we're going to do this. I'm not going to fill it up completely. I'm not going to put all the watermelon I have in there. Now we're going to add a little bit more bedding to the top here. I'm going to cover this back up with this. You can see there's worms on there. They were all trying to get away. And I am going to put this back on. This is blocking some of the air. What we might do maybe is just leave a section of it open, sort of like this, that way the air can flow out. And what I'm probably going to do here is instead of, I know I had this on the other one. Hold on, you're going to see the camera move here for just a second. I had this on the other bin, but I think I'm going to throw this on the top here, and that is this carbon mat. And this is hopefully going to contain some of those smells. So I'm going to close this back up. Fruit fly there. I'm going to put this right here like this. Just try to get rid of those fruit flies there. And we're going to leave it like this. I'm not going to add anything else to it. I'm probably going to put, just so everyone knows, I am going to put a bucket or something underneath this bin. What I'm worried about now is it leaking out the bottom, which I really don't want to have happen and have a huge mess on my floor. So I will put something under there to catch any liquid that leaches out. So that's what's going on with this. It still has an odor down here. It's not as bad as it was. I think these carbon pads are helping. I do have some pellets as well, but I haven't used them, which is activated charcoal, which is what this has. You know, so we're going to see how it goes. But, you know, overall, it is working, but it's not the way that I would choose to do this in the future. I would definitely do this a different way. So let me come back here with a few thoughts, final thoughts that I have on this as far as this first week update. And then I'm going to do another update another week, too. We're going to keep updating on this until it's all gone. And just to see how long it takes and also to see how the worms do with it. All right, so these are my final thoughts for my first week of Bokashi in my worm bins. So it does have an odor and it does heat up. It can be a major concern, especially for a small bin. I think the bucket is working a lot better than me adding it to a system. The bucket's a little bit more controllable. I have the option to cover it a little bit better. It's a smaller cylinder, which is easier to manage. If it heats up, I could tell from the outside instead of having to open it up and go inside it. So I would highly recommend that you do the bucket system that I did, where I drilled large holes in the bottom of the bucket. The worms will go, they're going to slowly work up their way through the bucket, and it's going to work really well. If you have issues with it, take it and throw it outside, bury it in the yard, you're done. So it's a lot easier system to do, I think. And I would highly recommend that in the future, that you do this bucket system if you want to add it to your worm bins. Now, with that, I think also my Bokashi wasn't great coming out of the system. It had an odor, which everything I've read says it really shouldn't smell bad. And I think that I had this top level, which was working really well. It actually really worked well. And then I had this middle level where it was rotting. It was not enough Bokashi brand. The Bokashi was not taking over. It was too wet. And then I had the bottom section, which I think also worked fairly well, but it was getting a little bit too much of that moisture from the middle layer. So I think that you need a lot more bran in the system, or maybe the bran I was using it wasn't quite inoculated with enough the microbes that are necessary to really build up that system. Maybe I needed to add a lot more with this brand. I don't know if that's the case or not. I can't tell. I don't have any way to test that. The other thing is adding wood chips or those wood shavings, those pellets that I had. They said that I could add those to the bin to absorb that liquid, and that way there's less liquid in there, and it's also taking up space. So there's less oxygen in there as well. There's less room for it. So that probably would have been a good thing to do, is maybe add like a few of those like every once in a while, just sort of to make sure that I'm really getting all of the, as much of the liquid and as much of the air out of there as possible. So these are some of the things I would change. And then if I wasn't going to add it to the worm bin, but the big problem is that you have frozen ground outside during the winter like I do. I'm going into winter right now. It's October, and a couple months the ground is going to be sort of frozen, very hard to dig in. You can actually do this. I saw some people doing it. I might try this in a huge 50-gallon container with dirt in their house. Or I think it might have been outside, but either way, it was a 50-gallon container, and basically they had about 5 inches to 10 inches of soil in the bottom, no holes in the bottom as far as I know. And then they added the Bokashi, and then they covered it with soil. And apparently it just broke down within like 4 weeks. It was all gone. So I might try that in the future. We'll see. I'm really debating whether to do this again in a worm bin, especially with this type of odor. It's just, it was really hard. Luckily, I have candles going I had candles going to here to kind of keep the smell down. And luckily it's in my basement and it stayed sort of contained. It smelled kind of bad the first day on the first floor, and I was wondering if my wife was going to really be like, you need to get rid of this now. And luckily that didn't happen. She kind of, I guess, either ignored it, or maybe it was the candles that were enough to cover it up. But it is something that you would really have to really debate on, especially if it's in your main living space. Like, it can really smell. Like, this is not a living area. You can tell I've got the studs here on the wall behind me. This is not a finished basement, and it's okay in here, but through your regular house, this would not be okay, and it would have to go inside immediately. So that's my first week so far. Let's see what it looks like in weeks 2 and weeks 3, and hopefully by week 4, most of the stuff that's really in there as far as the fruit and vegetable matter is gone, and hopefully this heating issue is also gone by next week, because that's really concerning. Luckily, somebody had mentioned that in the comments. I never thought to monitor the heat, and it could have easily just cooked everything had I not kept adding water probably to these bins to make sure that the heat did not just overly dominate these. So that is a few things to look forward to in the future, is to see how that comes about and to see if this really does work. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. I'll do my best to answer. I'm not an expert on Bokashi. It's something I'm trying out, and we'll go from there. So thank you, everybody.